Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Language Travel Adoptee with me, Emily. Hop on and see all of the questions that I have in mind to answer for you guys more in depth. I did say, I think when I was posting this sort of advertisement for the live for today, I mentioned I had received like a few questions that were the text was really long, and I knew that if I tried to respond and get everything in like one email or one DM, then it really wouldn't be sufficient. And I think that what those people were struggling with when they emailed me about their like language learning related problems, I knew that my answer would help several people if they only heard about what I was talking about. There are also, let's see, I do have all of the questions that I planned for today out here as well. So here we'll kind of see what is going on. I'm a little bit scatterbrained today just because I have not been more tired than I currently am like this week in a while. So my brain is all over the place, but feel free to hop on in the chat if you are watching live. Don't be shy to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself if you have joined me for lives before, and we'll all just get settled in. If you do have any like comments or questions that you want to give to me during the time that I'm answering like others' questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat as well. I'll be like looking back and forth in between those. And then I'll be trying to announce what the exact question was. So I will always give like the username. I might give like a pseudonym to those who still have not like given permission to tell the world like who they are and what question they posed, because some of these questions are going to be pretty personal, and I want to make sure that people stay anonymous when they want to. But of course, you're going to probably recognize your own writing, especially if it was a long question. So just know that. And yeah, if you're watching the replay, welcome, and don't be afraid to leave a comment under the replay too. We're super glad you're here, however you are consuming all of this. So let me go to my very first question. Again, I'm going to be putting like chapters into the live so you can kind of skip around and see what questions I'm answering. But again, a lot of this is going to be really helpful for everyone here. So interesting. I also had like a few comments that I thought I would react to as well, because that just kind of adds flavor to what we're doing here. A little bit different than what we were doing in my last live. And yeah, it's interesting because this is like the only kind of room that I really give to myself to look at comments that maybe like took my videos out of context, or just, you know, questioning my motives when I make videos, etc. I know every creator has to go through that, but I thought I would answer some of those comments and react to some of those comments in the past as well. So the first comment that I thought was really interesting was it was just literally one word, unrelatable. And this was under my, I think it was, you know, how I learned Spanish fast in less than a year. And I know that that video I made probably 7 or 8 months ago, and it has been yeah, it's been gaining like a little bit of traction just through search and everything. Also, by the way, my my microphone is missing, so I apologize if it's a little bit quieter than usual in a little bit more unusual place to film today. So yeah, turn your volume up. But anyways, with this comment, and this, I think this comment was posted maybe 2 weeks ago, under that video title for unrelatable, and I will also like link down in the description for that specific video, because I agree to a point, and that was also the point of making that video too, because of course I think we as human beings, like, we are psychologically like, we like numbers, we like especially in the language learning niche, we really like the words when we see like fast, like how did this person do what I want to do fast, because it's inspiring for me, and it makes me curious about what they did. It makes me think, oh, maybe this is also possible for me. And I actually made that video because, yes, I do think the way that I learned Spanish is pretty unrelatable, but that was the point too, because I made sure to be super transparent, and maybe like the last half of the video, that it was clear to me why I could learn Spanish so fast, right? And it wasn't just because, I did drills or I had enough time. That was definitely part of it, right? Because I was still a student. And I think that a lot of polyglots too, especially if they make content online, a lot of them got started pretty early. They usually had the common denominator of not having a good um, experience, I guess, with the language back in like their high school days or school days, whatever. And that definitely happened to me. And yeah, we all kind of took advantage of that period in our lives where we naturally had probably a bit more time, a bit more privilege to do that sort of thing. And in my case, yes, I did have the time. I also had the funds to go abroad and actually like visit the country whenever I wanted. I had the resources to go there and just stay abroad and be surrounded by so many people who were learning languages. They were all very young, early 20s, and they were so inspiring. So I kept on, pushing myself, half because of my, of a lot of ambition and a lot of emotional struggles that I was facing. Mostly because I just wanted to prove myself, like, I want to learn this language as fast as possible so I can prove to myself that I'm worthy as the language learner that I'm portraying myself to be, mostly in person, right? And yeah, so it definitely matters who you surround yourself with. And I know that a lot of us connect to each other virtually. Like a lot of us do not have a lot of people who are so invested in languages like in person, especially not a big group, maybe like one or two friends at most. Definitely let me know in the comments if that is not the case for you. I'd love to hear more. But for the majority of language learners that I've met, that has been mainly what's been connecting us is the internet, right? And so it's just like a whole nother energy to spend a significant amount of time, right? I spent almost 2 years abroad with people who just loved learning languages. They had all the time in the world. They had the energy to invest in languages. That's really what I was trying to get across in that video. But of course, I kind of titled it as the generic, like, oh, how I learned Spanish in whatever, 6 months, but definitely less than a year with what I had labeled that video before. And yeah, but again, it's a different kind of take. So that was the point for it to be a bit unrelatable and be really transparent about what it takes to learn a language in many cases, and really be honest with the audience about that, because it's not like I just snapped my fingers and was fluent just because I knew Italian before that to an advanced level. Like, even if you learn similar languages, you're going to have a different journey with them. And just because it's like something goes fast, right? Even if our learning does go by fast or we learn a language fast, that does not mean that there are like no barriers. Doesn't mean that it was so easy. And all of that definitely put me mentally in a worse headspace after learning a language in like 6 months. So yes, it's possible, but grass is sometimes always greener. So I thought that comment was really interesting. And yeah. Hello, you guys. Yes, so I am guessing Romulus. Romulus, tell me if I'm saying your name right in the comments below. How are you feeling today? I'm feeling very tired. Thank you for asking that. Very tired and a little bit almost burnt out. Like I can just feel it in my body, and I've been burnt out last year enough just to know when kind of like crossing into that slippery slope will occur for me. So yeah, but I feel good enough to be on a live today. Like I didn't have to force myself to do it. I'm genuinely like looking forward to hanging out with you guys. So yeah. Um, and then yeah, Kiki, nice to see you. Hi, Emily. I am learning Korean and I love it. Yes, I love that you're learning Korean too. I am currently just using Pimsleur for that. I recently watched the movie The Train to Busan. That was really fun, but that is the most that I've done for it so far. Mizu, hello, welcome. Come and hang out with us, introduce ourselves in the chat. I'm going to keep on answering. I think my very first question that came from an email, I think. And again, we're going to name her Jamie, but Jamie, you're definitely going to know this is you. once you read through it. So it's interesting because there are a few layers to this question. Originally, this question was emailed to me because the sender was wanting to hear my answer from a previous comment on a video that I had made. So the original comment, not the same as the sender, but she had seen this comment, and I'll read it to you. And I want to know if you relate to it at all, because I definitely saw a lot of myself in it. So the comment originally said, "Hi, Emily." And this also, the comment was uploaded by SheelyKitty9298. So she said, "Hi, dear Emily, please forgive my worried and English tone, but I truly feel you're the only one in this community who can understand. I don't know what I am doing wrong in regards to German. I enjoy the language so much. Am I worrying too much? And is this preventing me from learning because I'm so overwhelmed by grammar? So many people say grammar is not even the way to study a language. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to summarize this because this is a really long comment. I feel more confident if I can really get the grasp of the grammar, no matter what anyone says. I tried to make a list of all the grammar elements and everything like that. I tried to compile everything to be as thorough as I could, but I just can't understand, how will I ever get this? Do I just accept I cannot learn this language and give up?" And then she had said, "I'm practically in tears as I write this because I just can't understand how to learn this language. Maybe I did everything incorrectly." So this comment has been posted enough times for me to really understand the mentality that this language learner is coming from. And so the sender of the email that I had gotten probably, I would say, 3 weeks back from when I'm doing this live with you guys, Jamie, had said, "Okay, I saw Sheely's comment, and I have the exact same issue," she wrote me in an email. "Since you didn't share the tips under the comment section, I took all the courage to send you this email and hopefully get a reply back. I usually get too frustrated learning grammar to the point that I break down in tears as I don't see any progress in my speaking skills and in my ability to apply what I learn, the input, to speaking and writing the output. And the cases always stress me out in German. It takes me such a long time to understand, etc. I still can't get it today. I would appreciate if you would share some advice regarding this comment." And I totally get you. Like, I sometimes, whenever I wouldn't show outward emotion, like it would just like really physically hurt in my chest whenever I felt the sense of, "Oh, I'm so frustrated," especially with my approach to learning grammar. Because not sure if you guys know, if you've been following me for a while, then you probably have gotten the gist. But I used to strongly focus on grammar. Like, I used to only study grammar. I got my textbooks. I loved that. I had all the worksheets and all of the exercises to practice grammar. That's usually how I learned a language first, against all of the experts' advice and everything. Again, we're doing what works for us, right? So pretty much nothing that an expert says. Yes, that they can have certain leverage in, what is this concept in linguistics, or how could we apply it to our language learning, right? But we are all humans, right? That's something that I really like to discuss on my channel. We are very individualized. Our seasons of life are very individualized, so that will not work for everything. That will not work for every language. That will not work for every season of life that you are spending with the same language, right? Because we are always evolving behind our languages. And it's important for us to be compassionate to ourselves about that. But of course, that kind of comes down the road a little bit, because we see our immediate problem, right? Which is frustrated learning grammar. So what I see in both of these two comments that I would immediately bring up with actually both of them, both with Jamie and Sheely, if they are there, is kind of going into, why do we feel like we want to do 100%, right? Like, probably not even 100%, like 1,000% effort with every single thing. I see a lot of that with this here. And one thing that I notice with a lot of language learners, if it is, and also with me, right? If it is bothering you so much so that we are breaking down, we are crying in tears, most likely we have found ourselves in the same emotional place for a while, whether that be a few months, whether that be a year, and we are habituating ourselves to associating, our frustrations with grammar with a specific concept when we are learning a language, and then that just makes us just withdraw and not really want to conquer it, makes us completely doubt ourselves, right? When that emotion is so strong, right? When we are super worried, breaking down in tears as we think about how frustrating grammar is. So the one thing is, we think, right, that just getting my straightforward advice of, okay, like let's do just a little bit of grammar and a little bit of vocabulary acquisition next to that so you can kind of take a break. I could hop right to that, right? That's viable. However, if our emotions are so strong with what we are facing here, that really signals that there is something that we are not facing within ourselves, right? Underneath all of these talking points about feeling frustrated learning grammar, right? So I really advise you to think about, really the most lasting thing that you could do is put just a little bit of pause on your language learning, right? And really investigate, why do I feel this way? Like me as a human being, not as a language learner, why do I feel this way? And I will tell you, the reason why I felt a lot of the similar feelings for that was because I was just beating myself up for not really, how should I say it? Really for not having this process go the way that I wanted, aka doing every single exercise and getting it right, doing every single concept, like getting every single concept exactly when I wanted to. All of this type of perfectionism. I really hesitate to say only perfectionism because perfectionism is so multi-layered. My video has not yet come out about perfectionism in ambitious language learners, who I love to work with. So that'll come out hopefully a few weeks after this live is out. But perfectionism is so multifaceted, right? And I can see a lot of that here. And I'm not going to tell you, get over your perfectionism and stop making mistakes or stop worrying about making mistakes, right? Because we as language learners, right, we are ambitious. We constantly have high standards. Do not get rid of those standards. I do not want you guys to think, Jamie and Sheely as well, that that something's wrong with you, right? When you expect that kind of perfection from yourselves. But I do really, really emphasize to both of you guys, really sit with yourselves as human beings, not as language learners, and ask yourself and get curious, right? Why do I feel like I'm about to just break down again because of this really high frustration in language learning? It may be because maybe the professor that I had for German had really high expectations, just making something up. But really think about your past, right? What has led you to the expectations that you are using right now, that you are holding yourself to right now? Where did they come from? They came from somewhere, especially if they are affecting you guys so, so deeply on such an emotional and psychological level, right? Not something that typically language communities talk about, right? But again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like get over your mistakes, because that's not the point, right? The point is to really get to learn more about yourself so that you can come in more with an open mind to various solutions. That would be the first thing that I would suggest to this question. And also knowing, right, we don't always have to do 100%, right? Everything gets to count. I'm not sure how much you've been hammering in all of these grammar drills. It sounds like it's been pretty frequent. And in that case, giving yourself and your brain space to actually process what you are doing. I had found there's a really good book that I am reading. I'm going to have to look up the author, but the book itself is called Focus. Written by a really interesting psychologist that also has a lot of research about emotional intelligence and everything. But he was mentioning, the brain, right? It's only about 2% of our own body weight, but it takes 25% of our oxygen, right? Our oxygen use to actually function, right? And so we really need to work again on sort of that mental energy management, right? Because if our brains are just trying to hammer in something over and over and over again, right, our solutions-based thinking will definitely go down, because then all we can think about is the problem, right? And thinking about, okay, there's only one solution to this that I'm not getting, that makes me feel even more frustrated. So really taking a step back and thinking about that, giving your brain space away from the grammar exercises. Sometimes I find that, especially with some of the clients that I work one-on-one with, by the way, you always are free to work with me one-on-one if you are wanting more confidence in your languages, right? If you have any of these emotional or mental barriers, especially like these language learners are talking about right now with this question, I love working through this because there's a lot more down there deeply within you to really get to the confidence that you want. And also, I think with this, like stepping back and kind of looking at, this is frustrating me, this part, whether that be grammar or vocabulary, whatever, this part of the language learning process is really frustrating me. I've been just hitting my head against the wall against the same problem. I want you to think about what else gives you joy in that language, because again, our solutions-based thinking is going narrower, and narrower, and it is keeping us away from thinking about, okay, how else can I engage joyfully in this language for right now, right? It doesn't have to be forever, right? But it is rejuvenating for us to think about what brought me to this language in the first place. What if I really like this new what if I'm thinking thinking about my own scenario here, like thinking about, okay, if I really enjoy listening to Peppa Pig in German because I really like such and such about that channel, but it doesn't really serve me for learning grammar. That's okay. Not every single thing that we are going to do in language learning is going to serve our exact goal of mastering the German grammar in a year, right? Because you have to give yourself a break. You have to invite more joy and more mental, also emotional rest into your studies to function optimally. There was one thing that I put in, I think, one of our community tabs, community feeds here on YouTube, and it was really knowing that really anything that allows you to be productive at your highest, most optimal energy level, anything that allows you to reach that level, that is productive. And that includes rest. That includes doing what we really like to do. That includes giving ourselves a little bit more space in between what is frustrating us and what brings us some kind of connection, right, in our language. Doesn't even have to be like really, really make us feel happy all the time, but it's something that we can use in order to eventually re-engage with a part of whatever was frustrating us and coming back with a wider solutions-based thinking cap, right? So that's what I would really suggest after that. Yeah, I mean, truly. I know that we as high achievers, we really want just one solution, right? And we want to do it like 1,000%. Totally understand that. However, we are always slowing down in order to speed up. I say at Language Travel Adoptee, really using the tools of reflection, really asking ourselves, maybe what might have caused this for me? How can I approach this in a way that is safe for me? Again, using the concept that I had done before, connecting with the language in some way that does not have to do as much with the specific concept in the language that you're frustrated with, right? And then finally, kind of reevaluating what exactly you're doing. Because I do find sometimes that language learners, we do this one thing, we are hammering ourselves into this one concept when really it's not helping us in a way get to our goal the fastest, right? But we kind of think in the back of our heads, okay, well, I'm just going to hope for the best, right? So I'm not sure with either of these language learners what that case is, but that may be something to look at as well. Okay, let me go over to the comments because there's a lot of people, joining in. Yep, I'm seeing a few comments about Korean. Love that. Pimsleur is so great. Yes, it truly is. Only thing that I'm learning for Korean that makes me not feel super overwhelmed, because I know that there's a lot of endings to Korean and just cultural nuances in the language. I find that I have the hardest time with really understanding the cultural nuances and how that relates to the endings for a language or what I should use too as well, because I feel like that takes a lot of context training. And if I'm not surrounded by that on a regular basis, it's really hard for me to get that down. Yes. So yeah. Yep, I love the conversation we're having going on, Korean and a little bit of Japanese. Yes, Yusuf, nice to see you from Morocco. Morocco is such a beautiful place. Like I want to go back there. The first time that I went was back in 2018, I think, in February. It was gorgeous. Unfortunately, I did not get to see the north of Morocco, but I did get to see a lot of the south. I also got to see Marrakesh. Didn't speak Arabic at the time, but I did get to use some of my French in the southern part. And I look forward to going back to the northern part and using some Spanish. But I'm really, really so wowed by how different the right now I'm just thinking of the French word for, yeah, landscape, how diverse the landscape is in Morocco. Yeah. So let's see. Let's go back to Giella. I hope I'm saying your name right. But let me know as well if I'm not, if you're here. But this is also really interesting because she asked me if I may ask for advice. I'm currently enrolled in an A1 class where I often feel overwhelmed since I have a full-time job. Plus, the class is twice a week for 10 weeks that our teacher, even though she's great, tends to squeeze in the grammar and vocab that we need to learn. I often feel rushed to answer the quizzes and the exercises. My goal is to at least achieve a conversational level to native before I go to Germany for a few months as a volunteer. Yeah, so there's a few things. So it's interesting. Yeah, so you said that the duration of the A1 class is twice a week for 10 weeks and that our teacher tends to squeeze grammar and vocab and that we need to learn. Yeah, so that is totally typical of that kind of class, especially since it's A1. I know that there's a lot of new things being thrown to you, right? We're making that basis there. Totally understand. And I think that because we've already committed to the class, no reason to just quit, right? Because I know that it seems like working in Germany for a few months as a volunteer, that's going to be your main driving force. So always keep that in the back of your mind of why you are doing this in the first place, right? Classes like this can be a bit stressful, especially when we have a full-time job. So this comes a lot into what I am going to talk about in my time plus energy management guide for language learners. That is going to come out either next Friday or the Friday after that, kind of depends. So once that is out, please take a look at it because it'll be a little bit more cohesive in how to structure kind of your morning for this. But with a full-time job, I would say really listening to yourself first, right? If you find that you are already very, very tired, right, when you come back from work and your class is not falling on that end of the workday, I'm not really sure when your classes, those 2 classes out of the week are, but it really depends on you, right? So you could either structure your review time in one day, you could spread it out into a certain amount of minutes for each day. However, I really do suggest that you include some sort of like time block of your relaxation creative time, right? Doesn't have to be like doing nothing for a certain amount of time, right? It's just kind of decompressing and disconnecting from what you're doing at your full-time job and what you are doing in the language. That can literally be 2 hours for you, but that is your protected time for you. Yeah, because if you keep on just hammering away, I've been at this too, where I've had a full-time job and trying to keep up with all of these amounts of languages and knowing, okay, I already paid for this program, so I have to do it. I'm like dragging my feet, and I feel like I can't keep up, right? Really narrowing, because I would see, actually, it's really interesting. I would actually suggest to you to see how you can divide your review time up first, how that fits best with your schedule, since I didn't get any sort of details from that. And then I would recommend actually using the app Lingophant, which it's like an orange app. I'm trying to see if I can actually put it into the chat right now, because I do recommend that you guys also look at it too. So Lingophant, but basically it will make the flashcard for you as long as you have an audio recording. So let's see, we'll put it here, but it's totally free and it's something that I use to really save my energy. So let's see. Yep. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so what we have here is using that, right? So using whatever vocab you would like, and using that audio recording. I always like to use, it's called reverso context, but you can always get a audio recording from them whenever you type in a word or type in any sort of phrase that you want, and just record that if you don't feel comfortable recording yourself, or if you can't find anyone else who's a German speaker who will record that for you, but they'll make all of your flashcards, just kind of having that on repeat in the back of whatever you're doing, right? That was always a really good strategy for me to use whenever I was felt really short on time and I had to learn like a bulk of information within a certain amount of time. I would say for the grammar too, if you can find certain phrases that the grammar that you feel rushed about, that you can actually see the grammar in context in just really simple sentences, right? Just for A1, and put those as well into your flashcards, that would also be a really good way to internalize the grammar more, not just feeling like you have to hammer in the concepts. Obviously, sit down and ask, I wonder what is giving me trouble about, right? Determining the accusative versus the dative case in German. But I would say that combining that with the flashcard methods are also really, really good. Again, take a breather for your protective creative time, because I know with a full-time job and the energy that you're having to divide in all of these periods of life, that's going to be stressful. So yeah, take care of yourself. So that's what I would recommend right now, just with the information that I have on that one. And then we have this one. Yeah, so this question is from Ella, who also emailed me as well. So I'm going through a breakup right now, and it's been hard to find motivation to do anything. Do you have any advice for healing and also for motivation? So I can think of a few scenarios, because sometimes, and this has happened to me before too, during a breakup, and it has to do with language learning, right? For example, like I've met previous partners doing a tandem exchange with them, so they are connected emotionally. Like my brain connects them to that language all the time. And so it's interesting, because if that were the case, I always found that I really needed to take a break from the language, because whenever I would think about that certain language, right, I would also think about them, and also the breakup that occurred. So that may help you, may not, really depends on your situation, but that's what helped me for that. And just in terms of any sort of breakup, right? I'm guessing this is more of a romantic breakup, but again, you can have breakups in families, you can have them with your friends. So advice for healing. Healing, I would say in this kind of case, giving yourself time to grieve, right? We can't hurry that process, and it's something that's gonna stick with us. It may lessen in terms of the intense feelings that we associate with it, but it will be a part of our story, right? And that's okay. So allowing that time for you, however much it might be, right? Even like anywhere from 1 week, a few months, even if it comes back, kind of the pain that you felt from the breakup a few years after the breakup, and you thought you were over it, but it turns out you feel like you're not. Like, that's how grief works. So just know that that is okay. That's a very human thing to go through. I've gone through many things like that. especially just speaking a little bit more personally, right? Even a breakup that happened to me like 7 years ago, I still, one random day out of the calendar year, right? I still really feel the hurt that I went through that was associated with that breakup from so long ago. So know that that is very normal. And I would say really seeking any sort of connection, right? And it doesn't have to be talking with anyone about the breakup, but knowing that once you have given yourself a little bit of time to distance yourself, do what you need to do, cry, anything like that, that's super healthy, then make sure you reach out to anyone, ask for any kind of support, right? Can we just talk for a little bit? Can we just watch TV while we, do this Zoom call or do FaceTime, anything like that, right? So you don't have to make that such a big thing for reaching out. You could ask for direct support, but it doesn't always have to be to get that emotional connection that you really need. Really, the people around me, they've helped me get through those really trying times. And depending on where you are in that whole journey, right, of healing, there's really no right answer. I would say for motivation, sometimes dabbling in a new language, if you really like to do that, that kind of introduces more of the curiosity back and kind of reflects how maybe when you started a language that you've been studying now for over like 3 years or something, right? That really starting and at least dabbling into a new language that really recreates a little bit more of the wonder and the curiosity that you had for a language that you know really well now. Sometimes that curiosity and the energy that I feel that comes from starting something new is really invigorating. Sometimes that's not always good because the language learners, depending on their motives, right? Dabbling is not the answer because it can really get them in unhealthy cycles of just perfectionism, basically. I can't wait to say more about that. I don't want to say too much about it from the video's perspective, but I find that is very context based for that. But either dabbling, kind of maybe even journaling, right? Some of your emotions in a language either associated with that breakup or not. Yeah, just really reconnecting with yourself through the language. If you are at a level where you can do that, doesn't have to be perfect. It's literally for you. And I've done so much like sort of like freely conscious, like uncensored sort of journaling there, here and there, just about my own breakups as well, and build some of the work in from answering, some of my reflections about what happened, where am I going from here, that kind of thing. So journaling also really, really helps. I've also done like a version of that, but in like a video diary form. So of course, just a video filming me talking about exactly, using my language of choice, what I am going through. And that has also been very helpful. And I don't have to write it all out if you're not such a journaling person. Okay, so next one is, I'm going to kind of go back and forth on the chat as well. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, Elsie _1983. Thanks so much, you guys. Thank you for the support and the super chat. I enjoy your channel. Yes, I enjoy you being here as well. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have much of a channel. So really, really thankful for all of you guys here. Feel free to write any questions that you have too. But yeah, we are just hanging around doing some questions. Sorry that the audio is not as good as it was in my other stream. Forgot my microphone. So bear with me. I'm trying to speak a little bit louder. Yeah, so this next questions, I should say, are from Michaela. So what was the most fulfilling moment of learning a language, and what language was it? I think I have had a fulfilling moment of learning any language. Like, I mean, truly. If I were to rank them, that would also be hard because, again, it's hard to summarize like human experience in a sense. Like, and what I mean by that is thinking about Mandarin, right? And learning that language, again, still very much a beginner, haven't had a ton of time to prioritize dedicating more to that language, but just realizing that coming back from my adoption background, right? And learning a heritage language, again, I have videos about, what a heritage language is and my whole journey about even thinking about starting Mandarin Chinese, that whole journey, which was very emotional for me. That meant a lot to me to be able to face myself in a way that made me think, maybe it is more productive for me to start learning a little bit of Mandarin, my heritage language. So that didn't have anything to do with, okay, I want to hit this goal in like 6 months, or, this level of fluency. And then, there was also German, right? That was my very first language. It meant a lot to me to be able to find, I had a really special tandem partner in German, and just being able to finally feel how it was to just finally just use a language, right? I wasn't thinking just as much anymore about, what grammar goes here, what vocabulary word can I use here, right? Because we're always constantly thinking, our brains are working so hard when we are studying, and especially like using a language actively, like output wise. And so that meant a lot to me to really recognize that feeling for the first time, that I could just flow, that I was using language to connect to another human being instead of just, right, improving. That felt wonderful. So there are definitely different ways I would categorize those things. But again, they meant very much to me at different times in my life, depending on the context. So really hard to narrow it down just to one, but there are a lot of them for sure. What obstacles or resistance have you faced while studying a language? How did you overcome them? So that's basically my whole channel now. You can start with, as I said before, I will link as well, like the Spanish video down below too for that. Learning it in 6 months and feeling and experiencing, right, a lot of obstacles to that, even though on the surface, right, that's actually like big praise in the language learning community to learn a language that fast, but it really came a lot with its downsides too. And if I could do that over, I'm not sure I would actually choose to learn a language that fast, honestly. So there was a lot of obstacles and resistance that came as a result of me doing that, which I detailed in that video. There was a lot of, there was one video, I don't know if I've put it on private yet, but it was one where I basically had my very first experience writing a full-blown paper in German, like 10 pages, and I totally blew it. Like my teacher didn't even give me like a grade at all. Like it wasn't even a failing or a passing grade. It was just like nothing. And she brought it to my attention because she's like, oh, I can't accept this. Like, this is horrible. Like, why'd you do this and this and this? And at that point, right, I was considered the best in my class at the German language. I was studying abroad at a university, and I felt horrible about myself. I felt like I totally failed everything, no matter what good thing had happened before that, that helped me like keep my motivation to German. So I also detailed that in that video. So yeah, feel free to like look around on my channel, because that will pretty much answer that question. And if you don't mind me asking what got you into learning languages, again, I'm going to direct you to, it's right now my channel trailer, but basically, I think what the title is how I learned like 9 languages, like my polyglot story, I think is what it's called. But that'll really tell you how I started to learn each language, really what started the language process for me and how it snowballed into right now learning 13 languages. So yeah, and let's see. Okay, let's keep on moving down here. This is awesome. So this comment is from TH3 Black Grapher. And he was actually one of my German students who was also learning Russian. So if you're watching this replay or if you're on the live right now, really great work. I love that. And I wonder where your German and Russian progress is going for right now, because you were so dedicated, you still are, and I'm so glad. But this person wrote, your videos are such a breath of fresh air. Thank you for your perspective. And this was under my, I think, why you still fail to learn a language, from that video that was posted recently. So thank you for that. I've been trying a lot with kind of like, titles that I see have been clicked on before, just more in the language learning community, but adding, more of a mindful spin, thinking about, what if they really not thought about that deeply before as language learners, besides, all the metrics that others might say that they're doing wrong or they're measuring wrong or whatever. So I'm glad you guys have been enjoying that. And then, yes, so Device Management 500 says, thanks for the guidance. This was under my complete German resources guide video. He said, I must ask a question. I am going for self-study for A1 and I want to complete it in 2 months. So should I give it 2 hours daily to my study session? Will that be sufficient for me to learn, or should I increase the duration of the session? I have to take the German A1 exam on April 20th, so I have to get prepared by that point. Yeah, I would say 2 hours daily is a good starting point. Again, you're going to really need to see like how that's going to fit in with your energy levels. And as we see in my video about energy management for language learners, kind of like time/energy management for language learners, that's going to be very relevant to what this question is asking. Because when we put a timestamp on, what we want to do every day, it's really important to listen how physically, emotionally, right, mentally, we are responding to whatever time we are giving ourselves for each week. But I would say, start with 2 hours daily and see how that goes. And yeah, and see if you also need to adjust, right? If something comes up during the day or during a weekend, last minute, and you have to like reduce your study time, right? Want to remind you, like, it's not the end of the world, right? We can be flexible. We are in charge of our own schedules. And we are in charge of, how flexible we want to respond to something that comes up that gets in the way of those 2 hours daily for that as well. So let me know, keep me updated on that too for that. But I think that's a good start. Okay, so we're kind of nearing the 1 hour mark. So I'm going to think about what I've seen down for these comments, and I might do another live because there have been so many good questions, and I want to make sure I get to them very soon at some point. So let's see what else we have. Yeah, so Language and Mana 9255 said, I really like the Nico's Vague series from Deutsche Welle. So thank you for mentioning that one in your videos. Also placed under my German resources guide video. Do you have any similar source for learning Arabic and Spanish? Unfortunately, I do not. I bet that there is something similar in Spanish somewhere. For Arabic, probably not, just because and also it goes to show that I am just learning a dialect of Arabic, right? So I'm only learning Levantine Arabic. I'm not learning any of the classical Arabic or anything like that. So that would also kind of determine my answer for that. But in short, I have not, and I do want to make, different resource videos for both Arabic and Spanish. So that's coming, however, in down the line, probably later this year. So thank you for that question. Let's go back to the chat here, make sure I'm catching up with everything. Do you read any books in German now? I am actually reading, I can't remember what the author is, but it's basically called Das Kind meines Mannes. So it's funny because I find that I really want to, whenever I read in German, I really need a physical copy. Like der Mann, what am I saying? Der Mann meines Kindes, I think. So, but I really find that whenever I go to like used bookstores, right? Because there's no way that I want to go on Amazon and for some reason like the German translations of books that I already know in English, like they're pretty expensive, just considering like how much they are in just in the original English language. And so what I thought was, I'm just going to buy whatever thriller I see in like a secondhand bookstore. And that was one of the books that I found. Because otherwise I feel like it's just not motivating for me to try to read anything else in German. I usually default to listening, but I do like to get my reading in as well. But yeah, thanks for that question. So I am enjoying reading in German. And Elsie, 1983, I always get stuck on learning many languages. I study Italian, German, Chinese, and French. Wow, good for you. How can I narrow it down to just one or two languages when I always go through these phases? That is a good one. It's interesting how you say I always get stuck on learning many languages. So kind of expand on what keeps you stuck exactly. Because it sounds like your motivation is I just want to do one language, but my interest in language learning is just making me like dabble in many languages, and I don't want to do that. Like I want to stay focused on one language. So kind of expand on that, for what you mean by getting stuck, because that's really interesting. A motivation for all of them. Nice. Okay, so why do you want to narrow it down to just one? Is it just because you feel like you're not making any progress when you do so many, or what's the reason for that? Quick question. Are there any alternatives to STAMP to test yourself for proficiency in smaller languages? What is STAMP? I need to look that up. STAMP, language learning test. I've never heard of that. Language proficiency test. Okay, makes sense. Is the STAMP test hard? How hard is the Chinese STAMP test? Right. So is it only for Chinese, or maybe it's for like all languages? That's super interesting. I need to look at that too. Like that's something that I've never known. But proficiency in smaller languages, I guess Turkish is like one of my smallest languages. So is Levantine Arabic, because I find that you have to go to the actual country in order to get like a certified, sort of like a certified certificate. Kind of like doppelt vermoppelt, as we say in German, but just re-saying what I meant. But yeah, I think really the closest, like if I wanted to stay in the United States where I am now and not go to Turkey or not go to any institute that'll give me like a certain certification in a minority or like less popular language, you can always do what I believe is called the foreign battery like oral assessment in the United States that is hosted by the government. However, your score on that is only valid for 6 months, and it's probably like near or over $100 to take. So that has also like just deterred me from doing that kind of smaller test, especially for minority languages. However, might be good depending on your goals to figure out what you really like from that. Yes, I can give. So Mizu says, I can give a recommendation on Arabic regarding dialects. If they are here, give me a minute. Yes, definitely, Mizu. Let us know. Let us know. I'd be really interested in that too. I love finding different resources for that, but they are harder for Arabic. Okay, so we'll go down here. Yes. So this was posted under one of my confidence reset videos. This wasn't just another comment that I found was really interesting and kind of responding to it. So XOJACI was the username. Says, I really appreciate you making these types of videos. Seriously, as I started to approach the awkward stage between advanced beginner and into intermediate, my self-confidence and esteem started to really get low. Of course, I did a lot of comparison with others I've seen and my own judgments on where I think I should be by now in the language journey. Definitely still dealing with it, but I'm so ready to overcome it. So it's interesting because we, with all of the emotions that we have in language learning, which I'm really passionate about. By the way, I really suggest that you guys sign up for the waitlist for my community that I am still crafting. So it is called the Mindful Multilinguals Collective, if you haven't heard of it before, but let's see if I can find it. But it's really all about the result, right, of getting you confidence, right? Because that's really all that we want, right? We want confidence to know that we are doing okay. But there has been no other space that it really exists in the language learning community to really go as deep as I love to go with language learners, really to figure out, what are sort of the psychological patterns, the behaviors that we have habituated ourselves into. How can we leverage who we are authentically to gain clarity about where we want to go, get that confidence that lasts lifelong, right? It's not just something that rises whenever, we get a compliment in speaking Spanish well and then like falls once we go to Italian and we're like, I don't know what to do with this language. I don't know why I'm not making progress, etc. But I'm really focused on getting you that confidence in your languages. So I'm also, if I may be so bold, hosting a workshop really, really soon that you're only going to get access to when you sign up for the Mindful Multilinguals waitlist. And it is not any sort of commitment when you do sign up for the waitlist if you haven't already, but you do definitely get a lot more information about this really special community that I'm really excited to open up again next month. And you're going to be the very first ones to see what it's all about. But I usually love hosting workshops, and really the first workshop that I'm going to be hosting is in March, and it'll be a lot of fun. So definitely hop on that. Oh wait, let's see. I have to shorten this as well. Let's see if I can do that. But yeah, definitely check it out. And it should be as well in the comment section for all of you wonderful language learners watching the replay. But I am really, really excited to give that workshop very, very soon. So let me know what questions we have still. LC 1983 continues, right? Because we were wondering about how do we find motivation to just stick with like one language? Totally understandable. I can speak a bit of all of them, but not getting far. That's what I thought. Yeah, studying many at one time is a slower process. I want them all, but can't have them all. It's like falling in and out of love with languages. Yeah, so that's interesting. It's a slower process. So we want it to be a quick process. Am I getting that right, LC 1983? Because I totally understand, like it's emotionally really exhausting to fall like in and out of love with all of them. But I'm wondering, why does it bother you that you feel like it's a slow process? I'm getting curious about that too. So feel free to respond back. I love this back and forth because that's really where we get the answers, right? I could give you, right, just like a straightforward answer, but it's not going to embody, I think, exactly what you need. Okay, so let's see. And Anne, nice to see you here. How do I know if I'm making progress? I'm studying for a couple of months and I'm kind of anxious about being able to get better. Yeah. So I would say, if I'm making progress, say, are you wanting to make progress kind of in all four areas, or is it only concentrated in like reading or writing or speaking, etc.? Kind of knowing specifically what progress you're trying to make is going to be helpful for me to determine that for you. So feel free to go back and forth. Really good question. LC 1983, I have many resources. Who put it at Mizu? Yep, very nice. Yeah, keep on sharing the resources and all of those. I would love to know as well. Can never have, well, sometimes we can't have too many resources, but it's always nice to be able to exchange those and really see what different uses there are for them. Yeah, Kiki said, I am making great progress with the Korean dialect. How do I know I'm ready to speak it in my everyday life? That's really up to you, Kiki. Like, if you feel like you are, looking to connect with someone who is already there, right, in your life, then I would definitely suggest, if you do feel safe, like even just saying a few phrases or asking them like, okay, like is did I say this or write this correctly, anything like that. Personally, when I was learning German and Korean, I did not talk pretty much at all for the first like 8 or 9 months of learning the language. Believe it or not, I was learning grammar specifically. And yeah, so that that is also context dependent. Um, but I would say, that question, like you probably already know, like deep down, you probably already know when you're ready, right? Because it's a lot of listening to ourselves, right? Again, we're looking for a lot of outside answers to our immediate problems in language learning. But really what I like to coach language learners with, really what I love to help language learners with, especially in the Mindful Multilinguals Collective that I'm making, that's going to be out in about a month for opening for enrollment and everything, really knowing how to trust yourself, right? Really knowing how to listen to yourself, really cultivating, right, how you understand yourself authentically in order to get to that confidence. So you know, that's okay if I need a little bit more time to think about like what's right for me. Or, do I need more support in order to get to more clarity? Either way, right? To get the confidence that you want with answering these questions. So that would be a really good question to kind of think about. But I know, Kiki, you probably already have the answer within. Yeah, so Anne said, basically, all four abilities. Well, I do want to improve by order my listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Oh, and Italian! Yes, I love Italian. So what I would do for listening is I would make a playlist. Um, you probably do have a few videos that you really like to regularly listen to, or maybe it's like a show, or maybe you remember a video that you were just like, oh, I'm not sure that was for me, right? I would actually save all of those in a playlist, wherever you were listening to it. So if you were on YouTube, then we would save it in a playlist for YouTube, because I do like to regularly look at those like even from 6 months from now and see the difference. Actually, I mean, listen to the difference, right? If we're talking about listening there. It's interesting because I would really focus depending on what we're doing. But if listening really is your highest priority that you want to see the most progress in first, listening is great because it's so versatile. And it really benefits and really rounds out your language learning experience. So what I would really do is, let's see. Yeah, make that playlist. And then if you wanted to, depending on your energy level, right? If you have a higher amount of energy during the day, or you do, like maybe during a certain weekend, right? Then really dissecting those words in maybe one of the videos from the playlist, dissecting the words that you are seeing having gaps. Yeah, I detail a lot of this in my how to improve your listening skills. I'll also, where is that? I'm going to try to like find it so you guys can kind of bookmark it for later. But that's what I talk about for really improving listening skills, because again, it's going to really round you out for what we are going for in our studies. So, but yeah, so this is, for this one, improve your energy. No, your listening skills according to your energy levels. If you really keep track of what you already have in front of you, I'm not sure what level you are, but that's always like making sure that I keep and document a little bit of what I've been doing. What's been too hard for me, right? Same thing with reading. I'm still keeping some of the books, right, that we weren't really sure we could handle and like read and everything like that. Oh, this is interesting. I can like totally give a poll to you guys here in the live chat. Super cool. Okay. But yeah, so keeping a document of that. Also, let's see, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I would say like start with that video that I just posted in the chat after this live, because I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff in there for you. I love how the chat's so active. So let's keep up here. And you know what? I'm just going to say too, like everything you do in your language learning is helping you get to where you are, right? None of us are late, right? Because the path that is destined for us, right? The path that is right for us, that is exactly where we are right now. So I know that there's a lot of anxiety about being able to get better. Again, I help a lot of anxious but ambitious language learners in the Mindful Multilinguals Collective. We do so much work on that to really give you the confidence, right? That you are always going in the right direction. So we would love to see you in there as well once it opens up. But I do have a wait list going for that. And I'm also teaching a workshop as well for that too. To kind of give you like an idea and a sense of how I run those and how it really is to work with me more in a small group setting instead of a live or just watching me from a video. Let's see. So let me catch up with all the comments. Yeah, Rosetta Stone, not worth it, said Brian. Yeah. I personally, I don't think Rosetta Stone is worth it, especially for the price tag. However, I know there are still so many universities in the US that literally use it as a whole course. So I know different people will see value in it, but definitely not for me either. I think with Pimsleur is wonderful. It is, yes, to a certain point. It's interesting because as I'm going through the higher levels of Pimsleur for Mandarin Chinese, like levels 4 and 5, there are some really important phrases that I would want to know as a complete beginner. And then there are some where you're already talking about the economy and the market exchange and the what else, like giving a massage. Like it's very all over the place after you pass level 3 for Pimsleur, and at least in Mandarin Chinese. I'm gonna have to check out other levels too. Yeah, no, of course. And yes, thank you. I saw your video about learning Italian and the path was super organized and helpful. Yeah. Again, like really tracking where you're going with, whatever resources you are using. Sometimes I would even put that in like my own personal Google Doc or set up like an Excel sheet or anything like that. That is also really helpful. So let's see. We're coming up on some of those last questions. I'm going to go back up here. Yeah, so I don't think I even answered this question because I was like looking back and forth on what you guys were reading in the chat. But yeah, so with this question, where the person had commented under one of my confidence reset videos and said, I'm still dealing with a lot of comparison to others, my own judgments about where I think I should be by now. I'm so ready to overcome this. Yeah, so again, wanting to overcome our negative feelings, totally understandable. But again, we're looking for like one solution to what is a lot bigger, right? Just overcome something, right? And there's a lot that we can do in order to understand ourselves a lot better. That will lessen the pressure a lot to when we do compare ourselves, because it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen again. It's not like, I'm at this point, I have found, my own success in language learning, but I still find myself comparing from time to time, right? But the way that I recover from that is a lot faster. The way that I cope with that is a lot more efficient when I do compare myself, when I do still have my own judgments about myself, about where I think I should be, right? There's really no overcoming it, yeah? But there is a way to really add joy to the process, and know that you can recover a lot quickly or a lot more quickly than if you didn't have the tools for it. Again, we create all the tools for that inside the Mindful Multilinguals Collective. Because again, this is something like, especially the emotional, mental health side of language learning, that is something that I really want to cater to for language learners, to really get them that confidence, because that really is a lot of the root of confidence. Really, it's so much in our heads, and it's not enough to say, just overcome it, or just follow these easy 3 steps of how to overcome, perfectionism, or how to overcome self-comparison with others, right? It takes a lot of looking into ourselves to actually understand why we do it in the first place. What's our motivations for doing that? What's our motivation for staying the same and having these same thoughts, letting these same thoughts run rampant in our heads repeatedly over and over? That's all of it in order to actually make a change and work with our authentic selves, right? Because, right, we have our own self-judgments, we have our own self-comparison to others. That's part of our authentic selves as language learners, but there are ways to harness how we really are, instead of thinking, how can I get rid of it? Because we're not going to get rid of it, right? There are definitely ways that I've already helped my present members in the collective really turn this more into a superpower. So thanks for sharing that. All right, let's see. Let me tune back into the chat as we are rounding up here. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, no, I love all of everyone. We are getting some really good resources in the chat here. So make sure, if you are watching the replay, that you do look at the chat. I set in a few links there as well too. All right, you guys, I am going to hop off. Thank you so much for joining me and hanging out. I do plan to have just my regular long form video for next Friday. But if you do have any lingering questions and you couldn't make the live, you can only watch the replay, post in the comment section below anything you would like to hear from me. I'll probably be on in another live to answer more questions, and also have more of a focused topic for me to talk about. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining me, and everyone in the chat, everyone who could hop on midway. And we will see each other very soon in another video, probably on Tuesday. Bye-bye.